Sati, a practice from the past with a lot of problems, is a big part of Indian history. In this ritual, a widow would burn herself alive on her husband's funeral fire. People did this for many years. Sati was more than just a ritual. It was connected to religious beliefs, what society thought was okay, and men having more power than women. Even though some people said it was a woman's choice, many times women were forced to do it. This showed how women were treated as less important in older Indian society. This video will look at the sad history of Sati, where it came from, how it spread, and why it lasted for so long. No one knows exactly where Sati came from. Experts argue about if it's from old Hindu writings or how society was set up. Some historians connect it to the story of the Hindu goddess Sati, who burned herself alive after her father insulted her husband Shiva. Wherever it came from, Sati became very common in some parts of Indian society, especially with the Rajput warrior clans. For them, it was connected to ideas of honor and family pride, but not everyone agreed with Sati. Throughout history, people spoke out against it, saying it wasn't right. The word Sati comes from the name of the Hindu goddess Sati, Shiva's wife. In the old language of Sanskrit, Sati means a good and loyal wife. Over time, the word came to mean the act of a widow burning herself alive. This change shows how the idea of a good woman became sadly connected to self-sacrifice. Sati wasn't the only word used for this. Other words like Sahagamana, going with, and Anvarohana, climbing onto the fire, were also used. Each word has a slightly different meaning. Sahagamana makes it sound like the wife is going with her husband to the afterlife, like they're still together. Anvarohana focuses on the act of climbing onto the fire. The different words used for Sati show how complicated it was. No one knows exactly when Sati started. Experts discuss its real origins. Some historians think it started in the Vedic period, a very long time ago. Back then, there was a symbolic ritual. A widow would lie on her husband's funeral fire, but a male relative would lift her off. This showed the wife separating from her dead husband and going back to her own family. Over time, this symbolic act might have been misunderstood, or maybe people changed it on purpose. That's how the real burning alive might have started. The first written proof of Sati is from the year 510 CE. This tells us that people were already doing it by then. During the medieval period, Sati became more common, especially among the Rajput warrior clans in northwest India. There were many wars during this time, and people felt unsafe. Sati was seen as a way to protect the honor of women whose husbands died in battle. People believed a woman who committed sati would join her husband after death. This would save her soul and bring honor to her family. Section 4. The Rajput influence, honor, family, and the spread of sati. The Rajput clans were known for their bravery and strict rules about honor. They played a big part in making sati more common. Honor was very important to Rajputs. When a warrior died in battle, it was a time of sadness, but also a time to show family pride. Sati became a way for a woman to show she was completely loyal to her husband and family. By choosing death over being a widow, a woman could protect her family's honor and make sure her husband's family name stayed respected. But sati wasn't just done by the Rajputs. As the Rajputs became more powerful, sati spread to other parts of India and different groups of people. This happened for many reasons, from religious beliefs to money problems. Some religious writings were understood to mean that sati was a good thing, the best way a wife could show her devotion. Sometimes widows were very poor and had no place in society. Sadly, sati became a way to escape a life of hardship. Section 5. Mughal rule. A complicated history with sati. The Mughals, who ruled India for a long time, had mixed feelings about sati. Some Mughal rulers, like Akbar the Great, tried to stop it, while others allowed it or even liked it. Akbar was known for letting people have their own religions and for making the government better. He saw that sati was wrong and made rules to stop it. He said sati could only happen if local officials said it was okay, and only if the woman wasn't forced. But even with Akbar's rules, sati continued, especially in places where the Mughals weren't as strong. The Mughal Empire was huge and had lots of different people, so local customs were often more important than the emperor's rules. Also, the Mughal rulers didn't always agree about sati. Some emperors, because of their Rajput wives or because they wanted to keep powerful Rajput families happy, ignored sati or even supported it. Section 6. Colonial encounters and reformist voices. When Europeans, especially the British, came to India, they started to question sati. British officials, missionaries and reformers were shocked by it. They thought it was savage and cruel. The British East India Company, which slowly took control of India, first decided not to interfere with local customs, including sati. But as the company became more powerful, more people wanted to stop this cruel practice. The movement to end sati grew stronger in the early 1800s because of Indian and British reformers. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, an important Bengali intellectual and reformer, became a strong voice against sati. Roy believed in women's rights and education. He said sati wasn't part of Hindu teachings and that it was a terrible practice that hurt women and all of Indian society. He used his influence to get people to support ending sati. He wrote pamphlets and petitions and argued publicly with people who defended sati. Raja Ram Mohan Roy is a very important person in Indian history. We call him the father of Indian Renaissance. He worked very hard to bring a new age of learning and religious understanding. Roy did many important things. He questioned old customs, he supported education, he fought for women's rights. What he did still inspires people today. Roy was born in 1772. It was a time of big changes in India. The British East India Company was growing more powerful. Traditional Indian society was trying to understand new ideas from the West. Roy knew things needed to change. He spent his life trying to make India modern while keeping its wonderful culture. Raja Ram Mohan Roy had a special childhood. He was born into a Brahmin family in Radhanagar, Bengal. His father was a devoted Vaishnavite. His mother was a pious Shaivite. This meant he learned about different kinds of Hinduism. This taught him to accept different beliefs and see religion in a bigger way. Roy's early education was traditional. He learned Bengali and Sanskrit. He studied important Hindu books like the Vedas and Upanishads. He also learned Persian and Arabic. He studied the Quran. Learning so many languages and religions helped him develop his ideas for change. Roy wanted to learn more. He went to Benares, a famous place for Hindu learning. He studied Sanskrit scriptures and talked about philosophy. He met scholars with different ideas. This helped him see the world in new ways. It taught him to value reason and asking questions. Raja Ram Mohan Roy's job was unusual for someone like him. He worked for the British East India Company. He had different jobs there. He started as a munshi. This meant he translated documents and helped British officials and Indians talk to each other. Working for the East India Company changed Roy's life. He'd learned about Western ideas and how the government worked. He talked a lot with British officials. He saw how British policies affected Indian society. This made him want to change society and politics. Roy learned more about